given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Chair Talk. Today we have a very interesting discussion. It's going to deal with inmate manipulation, but a very different perspective. I was having a good dialogue with someone that I highly value. Her name is Tequila, and we were discussing inmate manipulation. And basically, it kind of piggybacked off a discussion I had with Connie, who's also going to be on today's show. And if we were inmates, how would we manipulate each other? So if I was an inmate, how would I manipulate Connie? If Connie was an inmate, how would she manipulate me? And the reason why we're having that discussion is we want to show how personal manipulation could be. So I carried that same dialogue with someone I truly value. Her name is Tequila. And she came up with a term. And the reason why I'm saying her name is usually I don't say her name, but there's a term she came up with that I don't want to take credit for. It's her term. And I actually wish I could have added this to the book I have on the market, Inmate Manipulation Decoded. So maybe if there's ever a volume 2. But when we were discussing weaknesses, she did attack my confidence a little bit. So I guess inmates would, be able to try to play with my confidence. But she turned around and stated that maybe in her effort to protect someone that she's close to, it could make her vulnerable. So basically, that's where the associated manipulation comes from. So I'm going to give you an example before I introduce our guests, just to make sure that you know what we're discussing here, is if me and Connie are very close, and let's say for some reason an inmate is able to manipulate me, I'm the weaker officer. Now, me and Connie have a very good relationship. Now, because of maybe Connie's need to protect me, the inmates, because of my foolishness, may have access to Connie, who would make an effort to protect me because of our relationship. Now, do I think this happens? I don't know. But I definitely think it's worthy of a discussion. The reason being is because our actions may not only affect us, it could affect the people that trust us enough to develop that close relationship. That's the key. The key is again, if me and Connie are tight and I do something foolish, the inmates may have an opportunity to get both of us. So here I am with my foolish actions and Connie trying to protect me, dealing with that conflict of should I report him or should I not report him, leaves her open to the inmates employing a tactic which otherwise would have never happened with her. So I definitely think it's a great dialogue, something we're going to have some fun with. We don't know where it's going to go. As always, we kind of just get the thoughts right now live as we discuss it. But let's introduce our panel. Connie, what's going on? Connie, how you doing?
Hi, everyone. Connie Alleyne here. I'm the founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I'm also the podcast host of The Fly Behind the Wall and the author of The Cage Was Her Cocoon. This particular topic is just, I don't know. To me, I feel like, I don't know if we've really explored how we could be putting our colleagues in harm's way by the decisions that we make. So I certainly look forward to seeing where this conversation is going to go.
Yeah, I love how you just did that, Connie. You summarize. That's exactly well said. Yeah, our decisions, how it could affect others. And I think that's what kind of led to our discussion between me and Tequila. So yeah, thank you for, further explaining that, because I was hoping I got that thought out. Hey, Gary, we also have Gary York. Gary York, what's going on, Gary?
Hello, thank you for having me, Anthony and Connie. It's great to be with you guys again. I'm Gary York, and I am the author of Corruption Behind Bars Inside the Inner Circle. I did 28 and a half years in corrections, both state and county. And when Anthony brought this topic to me, I had never explored it in that manner, and I thought it was a very good question and very good thinking on the person's thought, your friend's thought, who came up with this. And I did think of a couple of things that kind of fit the scenario, and it makes you think.
Yeah, I'm very curious, because here's the cool thing about having Gary on as well, is that we're able to apply a real life scenario. And I think that actually shows validity to why this dialogue is definitely needed. So now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talks for you, brave men and women who work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We're going to go to our sponsor. When we come back, let's talk about associated manipulation. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
All right, guys, then we're back. So just one more time, we're going to be using the word or the phrase associated manipulation. It's not mine. It comes from the person who inspired the dialogue today. Again, so her name is Tequila. Thank you very much for having the dialogue with me. Every time I have a chat with her, I don't really drop her name in the shows. It's the first time I'm doing it. The reason why I'm doing it again is because I don't want to steal her thoughts. I think that we can complement and expand, but she pioneered this one. You know, this is her discussion, and we're going to go ahead and try to do our best to give this discussion some justice. But having said that, she's very insightful, this person. That's why we're able to have the deep discussions. And then I have deep thinkers like Connie and Gary who are able to explore it from that human behavior perspective. And I think that's what makes this channel very unique. And I really do. I think that's what gives this channel a little bit of a flavor as opposed to some of those inmate ran channels, which not a big fan, guys. Not a big fan. All right, so real quick, I don't think, you know, when we work in this profession, we have to realize, guys, that we are a team, we are a family, and like Connie said, our actions can indirectly or directly affect others. The indirectly is always the concern because it may not be something that you could see automatically. You know, it may be something that all of a sudden comes out of the woodwork, and usually when it comes to manipulation, it is indirect. You know, it is. It's not so much something that's directly connected, but something that obviously happens because of something. Now, with that said, I think the title of this episode actually hit home with me. Again, I didn't make up the title, guys. I got to give credit where credit's due. The title was provided to me by Tequila, and the title is Associated Manipulation: How Inmates Can Indirectly Manipulate an Uninvolved Third Party. So let's break down the scenario. So again, me and Connie again. So me and Connie have developed this relationship through work, and inmates see it. You know, even though you try to hide it. And guys, by the way, it's a professional relationship, but we also become friends. And even though you may try to hide it, let's say somehow or another, the inmates find out that me and Connie have this bond. You know, whatever it is, a professional bond, but still a bond. We're close. So I think through that interaction, through, you know, what the inmates can see, this level of closeness, if I do something foolish, does the inmate now have a chance to pull Connie into my world? So I'll have Connie go first. Can you see, like, if I did something foolish, and because me and you have developed this great relationship, we know what the right thing is to do, guys. We know that. But in order for it to make this a constructive dialogue, we have to actually bring out what would make someone hesitant, or else we're not going to learn anything, right? We have to, you know, we know the right thing for Connie to do is turn me in. We got that. But let's talk about her feelings in doing so. That's key, because we want to make sure that we identify these concerns and address them. So Connie, me and you are close. I do something foolish. And the inmates know that me and you are close. Have I left you vulnerable now?
So I honestly think you have left me vulnerable. I mean, because as your partner, you know, I'm looking at it as, I know that, so I think there's ways that we try to rationalize what we see and try to make it be not what we think it is, right? Like, nah, he wouldn't do that, right? Or maybe it's just a one-time thing and there's a reason, there's like a justifiable reason behind that action. And yes, like Anthony said, we know what's the right thing to do, right? The right thing to do is to turn that person in. I mean, honestly, I think before you do that, you want to have a conversation. This is someone that you're close to. But I think the flip side to that is the person has put you in a compromised position, right? And so did the person not think about how they were going to be putting you in a compromising position prior to whatever the foolish action that they may have taken? That's something that as an individual you would have to ponder, like how did we even get here, right? But I think the other side of that is just knowing now you may have some random requests coming. Connie now may have some random requests coming her way with an expectation that she is going to comply because her partner has already done that, or because the inmates now see that they have some sort of leverage over Connie because her partner is compromised and she hasn't come forward and reported her partner. So it almost makes her an accomplice to whatever is going on, which sucks. But the fact that she hasn't said anything is also sending a message to the inmate population. And so we have to just be mindful of that.
Yeah, and I want to ask you one more thing, Connie, before I get to Gary, because you touched on something real quick. Even if you saw me doing something foolish, because me and you have a close relationship, you may justify it differently as, let's say, if you saw me or if you saw someone else do it that you weren't close to. So the simple scenario I did, guys, and just to try to keep things not so overt, because obviously there are certain things that you cannot justify. But when it comes to manipulation, it's the ambiguous stuff where you're kind of sitting on the fence, and that's how it all starts. It's small, and the definition of what's happening is really subjective based on how someone perceives it. Now, if it was an officer, let's just say this. I take food from the officer's dining room and I give it to an inmate. Now, Connie's close with me. She may find a way to justify that, minimize that, or just, oh, that's just Gangi. Now, because technically these inmates shouldn't be getting officer's dining room. I mean, think about it. I'm waiting online to get this inmate a sandwich. I'm smuggling it into my coat, and then I'm going ahead and I'm giving it to the inmate. Now, me and Connie are close. She sees me do that. She knows it's questionable. She got the feeling of conflict, but how she justifies that conflict may not be by coming directly to me and say, Gangi, why the hell did you just give that inmate a sandwich? She just may say, oh, that's Gangi, and he doesn't mean nothing by it, or, oh, that's Gangi. I guess that inmate must be a source, which maybe Gangi never gets any information, but he must be a source, or just totally disregards it. But anyway, there's a conflict inside Connie because Connie may know I should report that, but she's close with Gangi, and therefore there may be an overwhelming sense of guilt if she does report it because we're close. Now, had that be an officer that she does not respect, now the definition of what that person did is a little bit different. Yo, that person waited online. That person just gave an inmate a sandwich from the cook. Oh, I'm going to tell my supervisor. So Connie, just out of curiosity, and again, we're talking about the ambiguous, not so overt stuff, but how you define what I just did, let's just say, given that sandwich, I think is sort of dependent on how you see me.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's a level of respect, or I've worked with this person for a long time, or we're close, so I know what you might be going through, right? Like maybe there's something going on. And so I might find all these different reasons to justify what I saw in a positive way because we're close. And like you said, if we're not so cool, it's kind of like, yo, what's going on over there? And you're less likely to give that person the benefit of the doubt that you gave to the person that you are close with.
Right, and it's all in a sense to alleviate that feeling of conflict. Now, Gary, I see you nodding in agreement. What's your thoughts on what's being discussed?
Oh, yes, I agree 100%. I think you both stated it very well. And, the inmates are watching for results. So they're kind of like, they threw a line out, they threw a hook out, and they're fishing. So now they know that you gave the sandwich. Connie saw it. So now they're going to watch to see what Connie's going to do. And Connie made mention on that. The inmates are going to be watching. They want to see what Connie's going to do to see if there's a possible weak link there, a second weak link. And now they're also watching to see if Connie is a future possibility that can be approached in the future. They say, well, she didn't turn in Anthony, so keep an eye on her. She may be approachable, and they'll watch for other things. Then they may do some more tests along the way. a lot of these little things are just tests for something bigger down the road that the inmates are planning. They want to see who's on board with the games criminals play, right? Just like the book or games that criminals play. So they want to fish, see what they can find out, starting with the little things like a sandwich, piece of candy from your lunch, anything like that. And the feeling you out and feeling Connie out. And they're watching very intently, and believe me, they're studying, and they are studying hard, because what else do they have to do 24/7, other than try to find ways to manipulate and fish for weak staff.
Right. And for people that are watching this, that would be like, well, if she was a good friend, why would she not go tell Gangi what he did was wrong? And guys, what we're trying to say is because she may define the interaction differently, because it's not such an overt interaction. Remember, I try to keep things ambiguous for a reason, because there's two ways you can interpret it, depending on, in this case here, how you view that individual. And also, I like to say another thing too, maybe a little bit of a sidebar here, but also this can come with rank. If I see a supervisor giving that same sandwich to an inmate, I may think, well, it's a supervisor, but technically it doesn't matter the rank. What's wrong is wrong. And Gary, who's investigated corruption a lot, I mean, how many times have you seen people who use their level of authority to think that they're untouchable because no one's going to challenge them? But it only takes one person to say, yo, that was wrong. And now you could see that level of authority start to diminish. Gary, you're muted.
No, you're absolutely right, Anthony. Unfortunately, there has been several times when the rank structure, and I'm talking colonel, an assistant warden, and a warden, and 3 different places, 3 different prisons. And they even fell into the trap of manipulation. And it could be by association, because another supervisor told them about an inmate, and this is why I want to move the inmate to this dorm, or this is why I want the inmate transferred. And the higher ranking is listening to the assistant warden is listening to the captain and says, okay, go ahead and do it, not knowing the full story. And now they're involved in the whole manipulation by association.
There was a great story that you mentioned before, Gary, before we started the show, that I think would be a good time to, I mean, it covers parts of what it is, but I was thinking of this. Let's actually bring a tighter relationship. So maybe let me first start with Connie, then we'll go into Gary's story. Let's talk about a tighter relationship. Let's talk about married staff members, in which one staff member is corrupt and the inmate is able to, find out, obviously, well, these 2 staff members are married, husband and wife. So therefore, if they get the husband, do they have a chance to get the wife? So Connie, what's your thoughts on that? You have married couples, and let's say one person of that couple is corrupt. Does that open up the door for the spouse or the other half of the couple?
So I think it does. I mean, I would like to think that, integrity would prevail. But, when there's love, I think that's one thing. When there's the financial impact, right? So like, if I was the reason why the second income coming into our home was no longer coming in, I think that's something that, wife and husband would struggle with, regardless of who the person that's compromised is in the situation. I mean, I think that's why it's really good that we've got regulations surrounding husbands, wives, kind of working or supervising each other and all that other stuff, because at least there's that separation of work, even though there isn't the separation of the relationship. I think certainly in those instances, the protections that we have in place are working different shifts, right? Working different facilities, usually to kind of prevent these kind of happenings from happening. But I feel like the reality is that, I don't know how inclined a spouse or partner would be to turn their partner in. We know the right thing to do would be to turn them in, because, you don't want to end up going to jail as an accomplice, right? Or whatever that would be legally called. you don't want that for your life. I don't think any of us want to be on the other end, on the other side of the bars. So ultimately, I think it's tougher. It's a tougher, I guess, decision to make, but although we know the right thing to do.
Right. And again, it's not even so much about the love factor. It's more about maybe I have kids, there's a lifestyle, and if I lose one, if the husband gets locked up or the wife gets locked up, who's going to watch the kids, or who's going to, bring in the extra income that we need to survive? And again, I love what you're saying. We would expect the person to do the right thing, but it's good that we have the dialogue, because we just spelled out something very complicated, husband and wife. So just if you're watching this video right now, if you could comment, how many people would think that if their spouse was caught doing something foolish, do you think that person would turn their spouse in, or do you think that they would probably try to correct it, which would also set them up to be manipulated, because now they're going to expose that they know. So now the inmate has leverage on both, if you will. But I know Gary had a similar story where the husband, did something foolish and it pulled in the wife, correct? You were involved in an investigation with a husband and wife?
Yes, talk about manipulation by association. This would be a great one for Dr. Phil to have on his show. The husband and wife both worked at a prison. And now here in Florida, we do have husbands and wives working on the same shift a lot. Now, they're just not in the same buildings. But anyway, the husband and wife worked at the prison, and a very wealthy inmate, known to be wealthy, from the Tampa Bay area, got a hold of a weak link, got a hold of the husband, overheard the husband talking and to someone about some money issues. He ended up talking the husband into bringing him some Crown Royal whiskey once a week, and he would get $500 a month paid by the chauffeur of the family. And later on, the inmate decided, I'd like a steak dinner with that Royal Crown whiskey, so I'll give you another $500 a month for a once a week steak dinner. Okay, the husband goes to the wife and says, I'll take care of the Crown Royal. Once a week when we have steak, please make an extra steak. He told her who it was for. It was for the inmate. And I will take care of the rest. You just make the dinner, steak and potato. And now he started bringing this in. Well, a little twist came about. The wife started getting scared, told the husband, stop, we're going to stop. They stopped. Inmate turned them in. I interview the inmate. He gives me all the details. I interview the chauffeur. He shows me the checks that he gave to them. They actually accepted checks. Smarter people would accept cash. But anyway, they accepted checks. Well, now what happened here is a lot of what Connie had explained earlier. They needed money, apparently. So was the wife afraid of their financial? They had children. Was she afraid, if I didn't do this, we're not going to get any money. We need the money. Who knows what? But that is about as close association as you can get to manipulation. Your own husband is manipulated, and now you fall into the trap with him. Just to end note, they both ended up on felony probation, 1 year felony probation each.
And I want to mention something. The husband was already involved before the wife found out. So that's
correct.
Key, guys. Yeah, that's key. So at that point, the husband's already in a compromised position. So now the wife looks to protect, her husband. Now, is it wrong? Of course it's wrong, but can we understand why the wife did it? Yes. Does it minimize what the consequences need to be? But having said that, it's good to know why the wife may be motivated to protect her husband. Again, external reasons or because I love him. I mean, the point is, it's good to have a dialogue like this, because you never know, who your best friend is, or sad to say, if you're working with your spouse, what your spouse is doing, and it's good to make sure that you have maybe that dialogue once in a while. And real quick, just before we come to a close, very quick discussion just to get the thoughts out there. But we did mention conflict. I want to go back and just cover one more thing. So the two conflicts are going to be, and this was something I mentioned with Tequila. She definitely brought it up. Was one is turning in my close associate or my close friend or my spouse or my parent. We have relatives, right? You know, we have father, sons, mother, daughter, I mean, whatever. Again, some form of a close relationship. Or, because I could feel guilt for that. I could feel guilt for turning in my wife, turning in my husband, turning in my father, turning in my son. I mean, whatever direction you want to go with that. Or, you know, not turning it in. You know, because now there's a loyalty to my integrity. You know, why I do what I do. So what I would like to think is, if I work in this profession and I'm governed not by discipline, but by this is the right thing to do, I'm going to do what has to be done. But how do I define what's the right thing to do? Do I find the right thing to do by the agency or by my family? Connie?
I don't know why you want to ask me that. So, I mean, ultimately, you got to do the right thing. It's hard. I don't know. I feel like you have to do the right thing by the agency because you understand, I think, the legal implications, the moral implications, there's just a lot to consider. I mean, so I just imagine you taking, you know, the family route, right? I got to do what's best for my family. But, you know, living with this thing kind of hanging over your family's head for however long it'll hang there until it comes to light is not something you want to do to yourself or your family, right? Because these things don't remain silent forever. They are things that will come forward. And so I think if you are thinking, how do I best protect my family, or how do I best prepare for whatever the outcome is going to be once things come to light, it is putting a plan in place and finding your way through that, as opposed to sitting back and waiting for it to happen to you.
Yeah, and I would like to think that, you know, I'm not talking, guys, by the way, corruption's corruption. I don't care what the reasons are. Even if you're desperate to save your family because they need money, it doesn't matter, because you're putting others at risk eventually. What may be inviting in that first offer, trust and believe, as it gets played out, there's a major consequence, not just to you, but the people that trust you, that think that you're going to do the right thing. Now, with that said, I love what Connie did mention. You know, there's value here in the decision you're making, and how can I trust you knowing that you're willing to put our family at risk? You know, you're willing to jeopardize it all, you know, for whatever that mini gain's going to be, just for the moment, because eventually you'll be the one that's giving. But Gary, when you were doing that interview with that husband and wife, did you find it hard for the wife to finally turn against the husband?
The wife, of course, cried during the interview because it was hard for her. She testified to everything I told you. The husband told me basically go jump in the lake, and she testified to everything. She came clean, which told me that deep down inside, she probably wished she'd have grabbed him by the collar when she found out, shook him and said, get your butt in there, tell him what you've done, and maybe we can salvage something. You know, you got to do the right thing in these situations. It went too far, and now she's telling me the story and crying about it. And she knows now that protecting him and the family has now cost them their jobs, medical benefits, dental benefits, and the children. I always think of children. Look what it did to the children. They had children that need this care, and now they don't have it. And as far as that's with a married couple, and as far as working together with a partner, you have to do the right thing. It may hurt. You may just love your partner to death, not in a sense of, you know, that's a good friend, and man, I hate to do this. Look, if it's a sandwich, a piece of candy or something, you know, go to your partner and tell them right up front, don't ever do that again. I'm telling you right now, because you are putting yourself in a trap and you're putting me in a trap. If it's more than food or a piece of candy, I don't know about the talking. It's your duty to report.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Gary, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about stuff that's not so surface. And that's why I wanted to leave discussion there, because that's where people may think there's discretion, but really there's not, because it's what it's going to evolve into. So, what's funny is we only see what's in front of us. But like, us, we're very forward thinkers. We know that manipulation isn't about what's directly in front of you. It's what's going to happen later on. So a lot of people think in the moment, and for manipulation, you got to think about, not even tomorrow, the day after that. It all starts with that one ambiguous request. And again, just before we come to a close, the feeling of conflict obviously can be very overwhelming. But at the end of the day, is you have to do what's right. And what's right is going to be technically what's right for the agency, guys, at this point. I know it may be a hard decision, but in the end, God forbid something does happen and you knew about it and you didn't do anything to rectify it. I know you have that loyalty to that spouse or that good friend, but did they have loyalty to you? Just out of curiosity. I mean, did that person have loyalty to you? Did they know that their actions were going to bring you in, to what they were doing? I mean, for the husband to come home and tell his wife, I need you to make me some steak. How disrespectful is that? So not only have I been corrupted, but let me go ahead and compromise my wife for $500 a month. I'm going to go ahead and compromise my wife for $500 a month. I mean, where's the loyalty? And then yet you're crying, when you're being interviewed, because in your mind, you still feel that this person is loyal. And at the end, they sold you out for $500 a month and a steak. It's just, so again, just when you have those feelings of conflict, recognize those feelings and ask yourself how you're addressing it. Don't just minimize, negate, try to justify it. Ask yourself, are you doing the right thing for the job, or are you doing the right thing only for that one person? Because that's where it can matter. If the right thing for the one person conflicts with the right thing for the job, then you're doing the wrong thing. We're going to put that on a shirt. I just made it up now. Connie, that's the third shirt you got to make. Hey, Gary, anything you'd like to say in closing?
I just want to say thank you, everybody out there that's working the shifts, working overtime, protecting us from the criminals, standing between the criminals and the citizens on the street. And please pay attention and don't get caught in the manipulation trap or the manipulation by association. Thanks for watching.
And Connie, anything you'd like to say in closing?
Listen, only thing I can say is just don't ignore your instincts, right? Your instincts, your gut, they talk to you all the time. We're faced with those situations that make us pause, that make us think twice. Don't ignore it, because it's usually keeping you on the straight and narrow. And the moment we start ignoring it is the moment we start making concessions and allowances and places and spaces that we know we shouldn't. So keep yourself connected to your gut, which really doesn't mislead us.
Yeah, that's great advice, guys. And guys, don't forget books on the market. Gary's got 2, Corruption Behind Bars, Inside the Inner Circle. Connie's got Cage Was a Cocoon. I got the Inmate Manipulation book. The other thing about this show is that we try to give advice or just really deep dive into some good discussions. But in the end, I just want you to go back to work thinking about this. Look at the husbands and wives, or look at the family relationships, the close bonds that you have, and ask yourself, if someone got to the husband, or if someone got to the wife, or whatever it is, would that open up the door for the other person? I mean, technically, the more connected we are, if one person gets corrupted, could that affect us all? Because we'll look to protect us to do the right thing. That's a very good question we should start asking ourselves. And I want to, again, thanks Tequila for definitely bringing up the discussion. Also mentioning the term associated manipulation. This is powerful. I thought I was very happy to do this discussion, especially with such great minds like Gary York and Connie, because this is a discussion that was meant to be constructive, because we're discovering it. It wasn't something that we intended to find. It was discovered, and now we're analyzing it just to figure out what the hell we're looking at. And I thought we did a pretty good job to definitely start the discussion. It gives me a reason to go back and take a look to see, how close some relationships are about workers, and just to kind of make sure that, if I have one person that's maybe taking the wrong path, maybe we should quickly check out the people that they're closest to. You just don't know. As always, guys, the show is Teared Up. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.